the 3 F's right there. Some variation. I heard this before. This is what your brain, your limbic system is doing on any given day. It's walking around and asking itself, can I eat that? Can I reproduce with it? Do I have to freeze? Do I have to run away? Do I have to fight? That's all it's doing all day, every day. Okay? So in a threat environment, we can cross these 2 things. We don't really care about that. We're only going to focus on that. So in a true threat environment, your brain is only going to worry about these 3 things. All right? Freeze, flight, fight. And here's a fun thing. You might have heard whatever variation of these in whatever manner. Fight, flee, freeze, whatever it is. This is the order an unconditioned person will react to. Will react to if you're unconditioned. If you get into a situation and you're unconditioned, you will freeze, then you will attempt to flee, then you will attempt to fight. Okay? If I got any law enforcement or firemen or anybody has to go into save people, I'll ask you this, and when I teach a class is, can you afford to freeze first or flee? Okay? When you're trying to do your job out there trying to save somebody. I think the answer is no. So what do? We're stuck, right? Well, here's the good news. Based on your experiences in life, we can flip those things around, okay? We can flip it to go to flee first or fight, depending on your context, whatever it is. And everyone's like, well, why would I want to go to fight first, okay? And I'm not talking about just law enforcement or military or firemen or anything. I'm talking about your everyday walking around doing my thing with my family, okay? I'm not going to tell anybody what to do or be a hero with all these active shooter incidents and all this crazy stuff that's happening nowadays. But I'll tell you this right now. I know this from war, is sometimes you can get in the head of the bad guy, the enemy, whoever's trying to hurt you. You can get in their head and you can mess up their tempo and mess up their flow by using violence of action. It's a term we use in the military. It's called violence of action. It's swift, hard violence of action, and it comes out of nowhere. And again, legal disclaimer, I'm not telling everybody to go be a hero. I'm just telling you the fact that sometimes violence of action can disrupt an attacker, okay? Because guess what? An attacker is expecting these when they're shooting or yelling or robbing or trying to do that. They're expecting this. And when this happens, it kind of changes, and it happens quickly. That can change the tempo a little bit. Quick story in Afghanistan. Marines were in Afghanistan just yet. It was the Army first at a certain time or a certain region. And the Army, it was an Army supply unit. Okay, so this wasn't an infantry unit. It was not a combat unit. They were just moving logistics back and forth. And that was the main one in this area I remember hearing about. And so the Taliban in the area in the beginning would shoot at these convoys. And what the convoys would do, they're not trained for that. They don't have the equipment. They just hit the gas and beat feet out of there as fast as they could whenever they got shot. So what happened the day the Marines showed up into town? They rolled in with the same type of trucks. Taliban was like, oh, hey, the Army's here again. And they started lighting them up, shooting pop shots off, from, like the side of a road somewhere. And the entire convoy stops. And all these Marine drivers, clerks, whoever, anybody with a gun comes running out of these vehicles and are running towards all the bad guys, all right? What do you think the Taliban did in that situation? Do you think they were expecting them to run towards gunshots, especially if someone's shooting at you? That doesn't make sense, so they ended up fleeing. So just a quick example, sometimes violence of action quickly applied can stop these people dead in tracks, right? So how do we get to good conditioning? How do we condition? Like I said, you're already doing some of it right now. We're training just by being aware of some of these things can stop you from doing them, all right? Because when you're not aware, when you don't have the experiences or you're not conditioned into some of these things, you can get into denial, all right? Denial is one of the biggest killers out there. Denial will kill you dead. You've heard it before, you've said it before, you've seen it before, okay? If you've ever gotten in a situation and you told yourself, no way did I just see that. No way did that just happen right in front of me. No way did that guy just punch that guy. You were in a minor form of denial, okay? In denial, your brain is observing something that it's never seen before, okay? That quick example I just gave you, the Taliban, all right? The Marines stopping and running after them after they shot at him. That makes no sense, okay? That doesn't make sense. They weren't expecting that, nor have they ever seen that. They didn't have a file folder for that. They went through their brain. They couldn't find anything on that one. So what do they do? Boom, froze. Oh, they ran. They ran. A few of them froze. Most of them flee after they shot a few of them. But they weren't expecting that. Same thing with denial. When you see something you're not conditioned for, you're not ready for, you can fall in denial, and that's where a lot of these bad decisions come from. I talked about it a couple last times, but you talk about these active shooter incidents, and you talk about Stephen Kaczmierzak in DeKalb, Illinois, who goes into his geology class. It's a college class. He walks in with a shotgun, and he shoots a professor up on the stage, and he turns to the students. He starts, shooting them with a 12-gauge shotgun, playing human whack-a-mole. All right. No one gets up, no one runs, no one does anything. But at the very end of it, he finally gets under his last round in his shotgun, and he puts it under his chin and kills himself. Then everyone runs screaming out of there, and they talked to some of them at the end, and more than a few said, you know, I thought it was a test. I thought it was a test. Now, an educated man, kind of jacked up test would, you know, you put in a geology student like that, and it might sound dumb, and it might sound like a stupid response, but it's not their fault. They weren't conditioned. They weren't ready for that. They think those kids woke up that day and were like, oh, better stretch it out for that active shooter today. You know, I don't want to get shot today. No, they weren't prepared for that. They weren't conditioned. So that's the best thing you can do today is learning about these things in the brain that can affect your decision making, that can affect this in times of stress and get ahead of it. Just knowing this information can keep you out of denial, just like that. All right? Isn't this fun stuff, guys? This is why I do this stuff all the time. I've been doing it over 10 years now. I did it as a Marine. I did it as a civilian contractor. Now I'm doing my own thing. But still, okay, the passion's real. I still dork out of this stuff. The business side, not so much. That's a pain in the butt. But this information, this content, I love this stuff. I eat it up, and I'm a student of it. So I try to get you guys excited like I am, nerd out like I am, right? So to stay out of denial, or denial is one of the things that can happen to you by understanding crazy stuff happens. And here's another part of denial. Not only do you have to think about it in terms of yourself and how you react and make decisions in times of stress, but you need to think about it in terms of other people around you, okay? I'm telling you, I'm guaranteeing you, denial is going to happen. Denial is going to happen, and it's going to happen. So if you know that, and you know people are going to kind of lose their mind around you, you can now be that leader. I just wrote an article. I can link it in the group. I'll add it to the group. I don't think I have yet, but it's 5 ways to be a leader in an emergency. All right, and they have nothing to do with like tactics, like, oh, make sure this is paused or do this. It's all about mindset. It's all about thinking about people going through denial. People are going to be wide-eyed. They're going to be in a hard state of freeze, and you know in the information now, you got to be the leader. You got to be the leader in that situation, kicking people in the ass, getting them moving, getting them secured, doing something. Do something. I don't care what it is. Get them doing something as opposed to just freezing. Hey, Rice Camps, how are you guys? Portage, Michigan, whole family member. Is this like intuition? Great question. Is this like intuition? It's exactly like intuition. So intuition, women's intuition, gut feelings, that's all this stuff is. Now we've just put science behind it. We've put words behind it, right? So we've all had those gut feelings. It's not just manna from heaven. Intuition just doesn't come from nowhere. It's your brain processing information wicked quick, right? Like I said, that front part of your brain, it's thinking about all this stuff all day, every day. But your limbic system only cares about those few things, so it might only need one tiny piece of information. Your front part of your brain is trying to take in all this info, but your limbic system is only looking for one piece of information, maybe connected to a threat, and it starts sending out alarm bells, right? And here's the thing, here's where people really get in trouble. This is a whole other module to talk about, is when you have that intuition, when you have that gut feeling, when you have the women's intuition, when you have it, listen to it. Okay, we've all heard it before. Thousands of years they've been saying, oh, listen to your gut, listen to your intuition. Yes, now we have the science to prove, you know, it's your limbic system processing information wicked quick. Okay, look, it's your big part of your brain is worried about the weekend, about work, your family, all this stuff. Again, your limbic system only cares about 3 things wicked quick, and then it makes an assessment. There's a great book called I can't remember his name. He's got crazy hair, Thin Slicing. Help me out, chat. What's his name? Big, crazy, curly hair. He wrote Outliers, Thin Slicing. We'll remember. But he talks about thin slicing and the ability to look at something and make an intuitive decision, a correct intuitive decision quickly, within 2 seconds. And an example he gave was an art majors, or they were going to reveal a big piece of art where this museum or this art gallery bought it for millions and millions of dollars. It was like a Roman statue, right? And they're like, yep, it's authentic, it's Rome, it's 2,000 years old, you know, and they wanted to show it to these 2 experts here. Malcolm Gladwell, that's his name. Malcolm Gladwell, thin slicing. And they bring these experts in, and they unveil this thing they've been sitting on for a few months, you know, to surprise. And the lady, she was an expert in art, and that she's the one who brought it. They flip the veil off. Within 2 seconds, she goes, fake. And like all these people are like aghast. They're like, what did you just say? We spent $10 million, like all this crap. We had it tested. We had it sent to the lab, blah, 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 all this stuff. She goes, oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why I said that. It just came out. all I could think of is fake. And I'm looking at it now, it just says, it screams fake to me. I don't know why. And they're like, no, we did scientific testing, carbon dating, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, they retested it a third time, and pretty much the guys who sold them put a chemical on there to beat the lab test. And it was, in fact, a real-life fake. And still to this day, they ask that lady, that art expert, and it was all this stuff like, why did you say fake? Why did you, what brought you? And she'll tell you, I don't know, it just looked fake. That's your midbrain. That's your limbic system processing that information and giving you an answer. Where we get in trouble is when you tamp that down, is when you stop listening. When you get the bad gut feeling, you get the women's intuition, whatever it is, and you go, no, that's not what's happening right now. That can't be what's happening. We try to be polite. We try to bring it back to polite society. When in reality, your limbic system's trying to scream at you like, danger, Will Robinson, there's something wrong here, all right? And you need to pay attention to that stuff. So, great question. Thanks from the Rice Camps. Nice to talk to you. But great question. Yes, this is exactly intuition put in the science form. All right? Hope that answered it for you. And so let's go on to the next step. So we talked about the brain. We talked about where these things kind of come from. We talked about why we got to care about freeze, flight, fight, and their applications in every day. So who cares? What do I care? So now we understand that we have these survival mechanisms. We understand, you need to pay attention to these survival mechanisms when they're kicking. You need to not tamp it down. Now, what the heck do we look for, right? What are we profiling? We've kind of been dancing around the dance floor for a little bit. And I didn't include this in my last two ones. I'm just giving you a taste of what's going to be coming up. So the first behavioral domain we talk about when we get into understanding the fear and the threat, we got past that. Now we're looking outward. Now we're looking around us, and we're looking for anybody having a limbic system response, having a fear response. There are specific observable indicators tied with those. And the first domain we talk about is kinesics. All right, some of you might have heard that before, or a similar, sounds sort of like kinesiology. That's the same thing, study of body movement. Kinesics is a good catch-all word. Most people just say body language. Most people say nonverbals. And all those fall under kinesics, okay? Especially when you talk about body language. It's so much more than just body language. I even use that term just because people understand it. It's easy to understand. But it's so much more than just body language, right? I can communicate with my body language. What about the tone of my voice? Can that communicate something? Guys, if we're in the club and someone steps on our shoe and we got a little bit more bass in our voice because we want to be a little bit more intimidating, that's you trying to communicate intimidation. Or my law enforcement or anybody who's ever worked with a radio, we know when it's a new guy on the thing, when they're getting shot at or blown up, and they get on there and they go, "Troops at contact, we need help." You know, it sounds like Minnie Mouse. That's a high amount of stress in his voice. He's communicating. He's really stressed out. And we're like, "Hey, calm down, Boosh. Get off the radio." So again, eye contact. Think about eye contact all day, every day. We had to go back. Again, these are a lot of throwback, hardwired behaviors. We were much more articulate than we are nowadays, so we communicate with our words. But there was a time back in the day that we weren't as articulate as we were today, so we still had to communicate. That's where a lot of these throwback nonverbal kinesics come from. Back in like caveman days, when I'd catch a movement in my peripheral and I'd look up and I'd look at the guy and I'd recognize his face, I'm like, all right, cool, we're good, no problem. That's Jim Bob from down the way. As opposed to one guy where I look at him, I look at his face, he doesn't know me, I don't know him, he's looking at me, I'm looking at him, he's looking at me, and he breaks eye contact, no problem. That's a form of communication. That's saying, I don't want a problem. That's kind of submission. As opposed to the third situation, back in the caveman days where Gorlak comes up and you see that guy and I don't recognize his face, he doesn't recognize mine, he doesn't break eye contact, I don't break eye contact, what's the next event? Yeah, next thing we're beating each other with a monkey hip bone or whatever they did back in the day. But it's okay, everybody, we're much more civilized nowadays. We don't get in trouble, we don't get in fights and arguments over things like eye contact, right guys? Yeah? No more eye contact fights, yeah. Much more civilized nowadays. Throwback, survival behavior. So that's just a couple quick examples. It's not just kinesics, it's not just body language, it's nonverbals in general. That's where people kind of learn body language and they stop, all right? The spoken word, if you think about it, grand scheme of things, I don't want to get into debate here. Grand scheme of things is relatively new. Spoken word only has been around for about 10,000 years. People say 10,000 years, some people say 200,000 years, okay? But what can they all agree on is there was a time where we were much less articulate than we were now, and we needed some other form of communication. And that's where these manifest from, right? So you can look up the fancy definition of kinesics, but if you look at it, it's like a paragraph long. But the most important two words in the whole definition are without words. A means of communicating without words. All right? So that's the blunt of it. Kinesics is a communication without words. So let's break some of those down. What does that mean? How are we communicating? But you're like, oh, I use my words to communicate. If you could believe it, 60 to 65% of communication is nonverbal. Right? Some literature even says 70%, depending on what you're reading. So you tell me, is that a big chunk of information swirling around your head at any given time? If you agree, 60 to 65% is a lot of information. My next question would be, how much are you paying attention to? How much are you paying attention to? How much are you taking in? How much are you processing? On a given day, for the average person, very little. Most of it, we're just jettisoning all that information because we're like, oh, I don't care, I don't care, I don't care. When in fact, there was a nugget of information there that you should have processed and you should have taken in. All right? There's a lot of information out there flying around our heads. When you come up with these, think about startle response. Some martial arts do this. Where do they come from? Again, it's all fear response based. A startle response. Someone comes around the corner and yells at you and they scare you and try to play a trick on you. You scream a little bit, you might pee a little bit, but what do you usually do? You throw your hands up and you'll back your head up. Okay? This is a thing that every human has done since the beginning of time. I can show you pictures all over the world. Everybody in the chat's been doing it. So how's that possible? How can we all do this one thing? Hands up, head back away, and we're backing up. Why does everyone follow that? What are we protecting? Chat, I'll bring this to you. If you do that startle response, why do you do that? Does anybody think they have a reason? I'll give you a second. I'm going to get a drink of water. Or Monster, whatever. All right, Facebook, you got anything? Nope. Nope. Chat. All right, think about it. You're throwing your hands up, you're protecting this area. That's the most important part of our body. Most people say, oh, you're protecting your throat, nose, eyes, and all that mushy stuff. Yeah, that's true. But also, what's the main thing you're protecting is your brain. I'll let you let on that little secret is your brain's sort of an asshole. It really only cares about itself and making sure it stays alive, okay? It will literally shut down blood flow to your extremities just to make sure it's still pumping, all right? So just remember that. And the great thing about the kinesics and the nonverbals is the more people try to hide them, the more they stick out, all right? Now that's real interesting, especially if we're looking for threat indicators. That's what I'm here to talk about. You see all these people doing body language and looking at celebrities and politicians. I'm talking about threats, things that can directly affect your day-to-day or your family, all right? So what would that look like? What do you think of someone trying to rob Walmart? You're all magically turned into thieves now. And we're going to go into Walmart and we're going to rob that place, all right? And so what are some behaviors do you think a person about to rob Walmart would exhibit? Anybody have an idea? No, protect brain. Yeah, good. They'd be looking around. Who are they looking for? Loss prevention, security. They don't want to get caught. They want to do their crime and they want to get the heck out of there. So probably looking at side to side. They're not paying attention to what they're looking at. You really want to focus on people's attention because they can tell you a lot about them. If they're trying to show you one thing and really do another, you know, that person reading a magazine is upside down, they're not even paying attention. So that's some things I want to look at. What about somebody walking into Walmart and looking up? Why would you look up? Who would walk into a building, like a Walmart or anywhere else, and look up immediately? That's the first thing they do. Anybody got it? Yep. A couple of you got it. Yeah, cameras. Do you all do this yourselves? Find yourselves walking in areas and finding exits and looking up at cameras? Well, that's situational awareness. And here's a good indicator you really want to pay attention to is situational awareness. All right. If you can ever identify someone exhibiting situational awareness, you have my full attention. That's time to pay attention right now. Because 99% of the population, think about it, most of us go to our day-to-day, we're not paying attention, we're not going through Walmart. I hate Walmart, you know? I get in and then I get out. I wish the AC unit would fall down and I crush my skull to make it quicker. So I don't have situational awareness, but if you can find someone who has situational awareness, you want to pay attention. Anybody who is aware of their immediate vicinity, looking around, people approaching them, looking up, looking at cameras, that's a version of that. What about walking into a building, walking into a restaurant, walking all the way to the back and seating themselves with their back against the wall, looking out the window? Could that be a form of situational awareness? Yeah, definitely. All right, checking their six, someone aware of their background. All indicators of situational awareness. This is a big one. I want to pay attention. Now you got a player on the field, and I want to know what you're about. But here's the thing too, is that it doesn't apply to bad guys. Obviously, good guys, we have situational awareness too. So here's the thing, I can't immediately look at someone with situational awareness and go, ah, bad guy. All I know is they have situational awareness. Now I focus my attention and go, okay, what's this person's deal? Is this guy a cop? Is this guy just situational? Is he a criminal? Is he about to do something? I don't know. All I know is someone exhibited situational awareness. 99% of the population does not do that. So if you ever see that, now it's time to pay attention. What do you think? Just that little tidbit right there. I could stop this whole class right now, and I bet you could make a lot of money with that little tidbit of information right there. And you can make a game out of this. You go out after this webinar and walk around, go mall watching. Just watch people and see how they act. All right. The nonverbals, they're natural. You should be natural. So when you try to hide stuff, when you're trying to be sneaky, they tend to stick out. I live in California, where everyone goes like 90, 100, 110 miles on the freeway out here. There's no real speed limit. Okay. So let's say I've had a little bit too much to drink. Been drinking all night, and I know I'm over the limit, and I get in the car and I decide to drive home anyway, right? When I get on that freeway, where are my hands? 10 and 2, right? 10 and 2. What speed limit am I doing? Yeah, probably like 64.5 on the speedometer. I'm not breaking any rules. Okay, if you lived in California, ever lived here, you know that everyone else at the same time is doing Mach 3 on that highway, right? So when the CHP officer and the police look at that car, the guy's white knuckling going 65 at 2 in the morning, hey, guess what? Winner, winner, chicken dinner, okay? And these things are not as mystical as you think about it. If you just analyze it, you think a little bit about it, you could pay a lot of attention. We'll go from there. Sorry, one second. Got any questions? No? All right. So you got to be careful when you're figuring out nonverbal communication too, because it is both learned and instinctual. A lot of this stuff we grew up with, this goes to that ethnicity comment before from GLG Knife Works. We've all picked up our own file folders, our own behaviors, our own little nuances depending on where you're from in life. So here's something you need to understand. When we're looking at threat-based behavior profiling, you got to put things in context and make sure you're looking at what you're looking at. What am I talking about? What does this mean here in America? Hey, okay, everything's okay, all right? What does this mean in some parts of Europe? Anybody know? It means a-hole, okay? So you could be a really bad impression of American when you go forward in the Europe area and throw this around and get punched in the face. That's not a good thing for you. That's an example of a culturally specific nonverbal, all right? The middle finger here in America, that's a typically Western, everyone knows what it is. They might not use it in different countries, but everyone in the world pretty much knows what it is from watching our movies, right? So those are all examples of culturally based nonverbal. So I don't want to spend time on those because we'd be here for 10 years trying to figure out everybody's nonverbals. I want to focus on the instinctual stuff, the hardwired behaviors that people exhibit when their brains are under stress, when they're having something going on in their head. And the stress, the fears can manifest in a lot of different ways in people, in yourself and other people. Fear, guilt, apprehension, anxiety, humor. Okay, there's another good humor of what to watch out for. Humor, people want to make a joke when they get a little nervous. You can look at it on YouTube. There's an old video of a Canadian infantry patrol. They're walking around in Afghanistan, and the one guy turns to the guy behind him and goes, "Hey, bro, great place for an ambush, right?" What do you think happens immediately after that? Yeah, they get ambushed. What was going on in his head? His brain had probably done the math. It figured out that threat wicked quick and goes A plus B plus C. You know what? The last time I saw this crap, bad stuff happen, so now I need to pay attention. So look for these things out there, all right? Hardwired behavior, better nonverbal communicators are better at life, all right? Everyone will ask me, I have this slide that says nonverbal communicators are better, end up better in life. And they're like, well, at what? At your job, at your family? Think about it. What would you not be good at if you were to understand human behavior better? If you were to understand nonverbal behavior better, you can read kind of social interactions much quicker and much more accurate. So now you're just reading social interactions, and now you're really going to see those threat indicators pop up if they do pop up in front of you, because you've dived down one layer deep. Now you're just looking at social interactions. Anybody ever seen that Mel Gibson show, The Patriot? What's he tell his little son when he's teaching him how to shoot a rifle? Anybody in the chat remember? Tells him, aim small, miss small. All right? So his son was, I think, was shooting at a watermelon or something small, but But his son was trying to take in all this and aim at a little melon in the middle, and he kept missing. His dad tells him, aim small, miss small, okay? So instead of trying to take in all the information, I'm just focusing my aim right here. So now even if he did miss, it's still within the watermelon. Take that concept for shooting and apply this concept right here for this stuff. If I can teach you to be aware of social interactions and things happening around you in a social kind of sense, what do you think that it's going to do for your situational awareness? If you can pick up social cues, you're definitely going to pick up threat cues. So that's why I build is better nonverbal communicators. So you can communicate nonverbally, and this isn't rubbing backs and holding hands and kissing rainbows and all that. Nonverbal communicators can navigate social situations much better and look for those indicators much quicker. Last one I'll leave, the last couple things I'll leave you with before we head into the Q&A. We're going to have a Q&A, by the way, after this, after it's all said and done, any leftover questions. We want to build out threat indicators first. So the first one we talk about situational awareness. Let's go into another big one you need to pay attention to, and you've learned this stuff on follow-on courses, but the big ones I want to get out, like pacifying behavior. If anybody ever heard of pacifying behavior or seen it before, it's something you want to pay attention to. Think of pacifying behavior as any behavior that you're trying to do to calm yourself down. You're in a stressed out environment, your brain is stressed out, and you're trying to calm yourself down. I'm trying to get in so everyone can see me. So you see people do self-touch, like one of these numbers. They don't even realize they're doing it. They're kind of petting themselves, cleansing of the hands. Your hands get a little sweaty and you cleanse them on your pants. You can do facial cleansing, running your hands through your hair, bridge of the nose, kind of rubbing the temples, one of these numbers. Anything you can think of, anything can be pacifying, any kind of fidgeting and moving where it looks like they're trying to bleed off nervous energy. That's someone exhibiting pacifying behavior, okay? Here's the thing, I don't know what's wrong with them. I don't know what's going on in their head. I don't know what type of stress in there. Maybe they have diarrhea, maybe they had a bad day, I don't know. All I know is they're under some type of fear or threat response and they're trying to calm themselves down, all right? So how do we use that? Well, I can't teach you, people think when they come to my classes I'm going to teach you like Jedi mind tricks. And you're going to look at like a crowd of like 400 people and be like, yeah, that guy right there, yeah, shoot him. No, it's okay, I took an online class one time, shoot that guy right there. It's a little bit more complicated than that. A little bit more complicated than that. You got to sift the crowd, right? So like pacifying behaviors. I can't analyze 400 people when I turn the corner on a crowded mall or something, but I can sift that crowd. I can use these skills we're learning today. I'm going to take, I put them in my sifter, all those people, and I sift them out. And I ask myself simple questions like, you know what? Who's playing by the rules? There's rules to this stuff, everybody. There's rules to life. When you go to a mall, marketplace, when you're with a family, I don't care where you're out in town with, there's rules to how we conduct ourselves in society. Your job is to look for people not following the rules, all right? But you have to establish what the rules are before you can figure out who's breaking them, right? That's your baseline. So when you walk in that mall, wherever you're going, you baseline the behaviors and ask yourself, what should everybody be doing in this context? So a mall. What should everybody be doing in a mall? Buying, shopping, socializing, mall walkers, so on and so forth. We build a baseline for them. And now you start hunting for those anomalies, those deviations from that baseline of what people should be doing. So now what I'm able to do is take in that big old crowd, and now I've sifted it, I've parsed it out. I've cut out like they're doing what they're doing, they're supposed to be doing what they're doing. So I can paint all those people out. I'm not spending my brain energy trying to analyze 400 people. And now I've whittled it all the way down. And now I can, instead of 400 people, I have 3 people I can focus my attention on. I go, hey, this person right here, that lady over there, and this person there, she's showing me, that guy's showing me situational awareness, and those people are showing me pacifying behavior, all right? So that's how you whittle your crowd down. Now, if you work in this environment or this context, let's say you're in some type of security role, now you can take that step further and go contact that someone. I'm not saying going over there and Goldberg them and rush them and jump on them. You don't know what they're doing. You don't know what's going on in their head. They could just have a really bad day. But there's nothing wrong with a consensual contact. There's nothing illegal walking up and tapping someone on the shoulder and going, hey man, how you doing today? Or hey man, you all right? You need help? You look like you're lost a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that. And what you're doing is gauging their answers. You're gauging their behavior, okay? So if I tap someone on the shoulder and I go, hey, what's up man, how you doing today? And he goes, yeah, can I help you? Having a bad day. My wife left me, my dog ran away, I got diarrhea. It's like, whoa man, TMI, sorry, I hope you have a better day than that. And then I do that, so on and so forth. That explains it. And except the last person I was looking at, I might tap them on their shoulder and they turn around and I go, hey, how you doing today? And all of a sudden their eyes get a little wide. That's called the biometric response. and I look down at their hand and I maybe notice a little bit of handshake, okay? That's adrenaline starting to dump because of the fear response. That's my piece of thread, right? That's my little piece of thread. So I'm gonna ask everybody in all these chats, what starts to happen when I pull on the thread long enough? Falls apart. It unravels. The whole thing falls apart, and that bad incident you were trying to get away from doesn't happen. And this is the whole tenet of all the stuff I teach, the hours and hours and hours of training, all the 4,000 people I've taught. This is the one point I needed them to walk away with, and I'll explain the whole concept right here. Most people have heard about it before. Some of you haven't, but I'm going to talk about it. It's a left to bang concept. All right, everybody see that? Okay, left to bang again, handwriting. Leave me alone. All right. I get it's a little turned around in the chat, but you guys get the picture. So left to bang, what does that mean? So here's bang right in the middle. Here's the incident timeline. Think of this. Sorry, I'm trying to get myself to where you can see. This is your incident timeline. Bang is right here, right in the middle of your incident timeline, and bang is that one bad thing you don't want to happen. Bang is your shooting, your mugging, your attack, whatever it is. It doesn't matter what your context is. Bang's the one thing we want to avoid. We do not want this to happen, all right? So let's take an example like a criminal act, like a bank robbery. There's good guy actions and bad guy actions during an incident, obviously, okay? So bad guy accidents after the bank is robbed. What does the bad guy do? Well, the bad guy has to get out of there. He has to get to his getaway car, get on the highway, you know, dump his stuff, and so on and so forth. All these actions that the bad guys do after the fact, right? There's good guy actions after the fact, right? The police get called, the police get there, the ambulance, the fire, everyone starts responding, get a perimeter up, so on and so forth. So those are all the good guy actions after the fact, after the bang has happened, okay? But what about the other side of the equation? Can I teach you to look for pre-event indicators, left of bang, left of bang? Everything after bang is right of bang. So that's we're reactionary at that point, right? So everything left of bang, now we're looking for those little tick marks. And here's the cool thing: all you got to do is be right one time. You got to look at one of these behavioral indicators, one of these kind of fear responses, and you got to pull on that thread one time. That's all you got to do is be right one time. And you pull on one of these indicators long enough, what starts to happen? Bang unravels. Bang doesn't happen. That's sexy to me. For a long time, we were very reactionary in the military, and especially my time in the Marine Corps in the tours during Iraq. And Marines are really good at getting into fights. We're really good at that. Okay, we're really good at getting in fights and finishing fights, and that's what we would do. We'd walk around all day, every day, and go, hey, let's get in a fight. Who wants to duke it out? And the bad guys would come at us, and we'd find them, and we'd finish that fight. Right? Sounds cool. Sounds moto. But here's the thing: for that kind of plan of action to work, if you all were my unit and we were going to go on patrol in Iraq or Afghanistan, for that to be viable, I'd be like, all right, guys, we're going on patrol. Hey, guess what? You're probably going to get shot, and you're probably going to get, lose your legs on an IED blast. Good? All right, let's go. Doesn't inspire a lot of confidence in anybody, does it? Okay, so that's how we were operating. We're wandering around looking to get in a fight, So after you get in that fight, after you get shot at for the first time and you realize it's not Call of Duty, you're like, wow, this is the most horrible thing that's ever happened to me. You want to avoid that from ever happening ever again. So we can do that by looking for these pre-event indicators, pulling on that thread, looking for an indicator and pulling it down, and bang, doesn't happen. I had a cop tell me one time, he was a corrections officer. Oh, no, this applies for both. But a cop asked me, and you all think about this one for a second, those criminals out there doing their crime, doing their dirt, stealing, thieving, doing all that stuff, think about it like a career criminal. How often does a career criminal have to be right for him not to get caught and put in jail? I'll ask that again. How many times when he's out doing his crimes does he have to be right to not get caught and not get into jail? Anybody got an answer? One time. Not one time, every time. Cop only has to be right one time. Bad guy has to be right every single time not to get caught. That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of stress. All right? But a cop, someone in law enforcement, all they got to do is be right one time. All you got to do is look at one of these pre-event indicators. You know what? We talked about that one time on that crazy Arab guy on the online training. I'm going to go call somebody. I'm going to say something about it. We've all seen those programs out there. Say something, see something, say something. What the hell does that mean? See what? Say something to who? I don't know. okay? And this is how we do that. So no more just, oh, we got to be aware, you know, head on a swivel. How? What does that mean? I got told, that was our big thing, you know, don't get complacent, 3 tours in Iraq. That's the last thing, when you leave the base to go on patrol, that's the last sign you'd see before you leave. Don't get complacent, head on a swivel. And it's like, what the hell does that mean? What does that translate to you, or to you, or to me? It's a different message every time. So what do? We start listing out all these observable indicators, and there's tons of them, okay? The brain part, that's all one section right there. I go on for days about this stuff. Today we ended the training where we started with a little bit of brain, a little bit of theory, and then we talked about actual observable indicators, situational awareness, someone exhibiting situational awareness, someone paying attention, all things that you need to look for, all right? And there's tons of this stuff. So what I want to show everybody here is, I told you at the end of this stuff, you know, stay tuned, we're going to hang out for a thing. I'm starting a webinar, I'm starting a membership service, all right? If anybody hasn't seen that yet, I mentioned it last time, it's a pain in the butt to get up, but that's why I need everybody's help here to get it up. I got some recording, about 2-3 hours recording, good, solid recording, and then every time you enter up to the membership site, it's going to be dropping new classes every week, all right? It's not only going to include the live training with me, starting this Thursday, it'll have the live training with me, but I've also added a couple things, I got them listed out. So we're going to have the live training every Thursday in the behavioral domains and the planning cycles. We're also going to have live Q&A after the fact. So that following Wednesday, we're all going to gather up in a room and you ask whatever questions you want. It gives people time to simmer on that thing. It gives them time to simmer. I very rarely get questions when I do this. It's usually a day or 2 or 3 days later that I get questions finally. So it'll give us access to the FaceTime, and it will also give you the ability to access the once a week profiling game, right? People have been asking me every time I do this, they say, hey, how do we get better at this? Are there apps, or what can we do? Well, there's a whole list of profiling games you can do, and they're a mixture of brain teasers, a mixture with the behaviors and the threat indicators, and I'm going to be releasing one of those a week. So again, you only have access to the live training, the private profiling game. I'm not posting any of this stuff anywhere else. The only place it's going to happen is in the private emergence group. So there's a group out there now that everyone can get access to. I'll be making announcements there, but there's a private group going up at 1 o'clock that you'll only have access if you have the membership. On top of that, okay, the live training alone is what usually I charge $150 for, okay? On top of, I'm going to be bringing in experts, retired CIA, law enforcement, to do this stuff, to do these interviews, and it's going to add to the package. So again, once a weekly, we're going to have the weekly live training on Thursday. We're going to have the live Q&A the following Wednesday. We'll also have the experts, the CIA, the law enforcement coming in. I'll be doing the live Q&A with them, and we'll deal with it that way, and any of that. It's all going to drop to that membership. And it's only going to be $39.99. Again, like I said, it's a monthly value of over $150 to $200, but I'm only doing $39.99 for this first one. You'll see the group go up on Facebook. If anybody's interested and you want it, check the Facebook group. You'll see the link out there, and you can get on there, and hope to see everybody there Thursday, all right? Okay, so that concludes the training part. We're going to go ahead and kick the Q&A while I get my Instagram back up, because it seemed to go down on me. 1 second. Live. Can you do the live again? So all I got right now is webinar and Facebook. So webinar, you guys have been a little bit silent. That's fine. Any final Q&A? No, don't worry about it. Yeah, I guess I lost Instagram. So nothing really big, everybody. Thanks for your time today. We're going to be cutting this up, and I'll probably be releasing little bits and pieces of it. But like I said, check out that Emergence Facebook group. You'll see the link to the private group, and we'll be running these live trainings every month. And this is the only way you're going to get them. So again, thanks everybody, and see you soon.